Do City need another midfielder? What is the left-footed centre-back dilemma that City are facing? And is Arne Slot a fraud? All of those questions and more will be addressed in today's instalment of Ask Nobbins, the show where you submit your questions for me to answer in the comments section. If you have a question that you want addressed in a future video, then leave it in the comments section of this video. And like the video whilst you're there, because it's free. Let's get on to the first question, which comes from Nikki Els-9320. Of all the signings during the past two windows, so the summer just gone and the past January, who do you think will have the best career with City? So let's just have a recap. So who does City bring in the summer and January? So it was Kusanov, it was Hayes, Marmouche, Nico Gonzalez, technically Echeverry, even though I think we signed him before, but I'll include him as well for argument's sake. And then we had Aït-Nouri, Cherki, and Reinders, and Trafford and Donnarumma. Oh my goodness me, there's at least 10 players there, isn't it? It's more than I thought. Who's going to have the best career with City? I'm going to pick a younger player because I'm thinking they will be here for a longer time. So I'm not going to punt for a player like Reinders, who's more so in their late 20s. My initial thought was picking between one of Kusanov or Cherki, and I'm going to pick the more fun option in Cherki. There is absolutely a world where he could be here for the next 10 years. He's vastly experienced, but he's only 21 years old. So realistically, he could be here for a decade if we play our cards right. And that might sound far-fetched, but we have seen lots of City players of that ilk, David Silva, Kevin De Bruyne, etc., stay here for a very long sections of their career. So I think that Cherki is already basically a superstar, and he's 21 years old. I think that he can elevate City to another level. I think that there is a world where he will be viewed as, I don't know if this is sound a little bit blasphemous, but almost like the Kevin De Bruyne of his generation in respect of the volume of his chance creation. I do think he could be that important. And given how Haaland is still so relatively young as well at 25, they're going to have a fantastic time together for the vast majority of Cherki's career. We were robbed of seeing Kevin De Bruyne consistently play with Haaland. Only really saw one proper season of it. We're going to see many, many seasons of Cherki and Haaland. So it's a great question. I'm going to say Cherki. I can basically see a good answer for all of them, though, to be fair, because if, let's say that Donnarumma comes in and just transforms our shot-stopping capabilities, and we end up winning so many of those knockout competitions as a consequence, let's say, multiple Champions League over the next 5 years or so, which could absolutely happen, then there's a really good argument for Donnarumma to be the one to have the best career at City from that transformative perspective. But let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Great question from Nikki. Who's going to have the best career with City of our new signings from this calendar year? Next question is from Jay Worth 150, one of my beautiful channel members, a member of the Ultras Club. If you would like to support the channel, the best way to do so is by becoming a channel member. Either click that join button or the link in every single video description. But Jay Worth's question is, Nobbins, what do you think about the backup 8 position and who can fill it? I want O'Reilly, but he's not looked good on the ball. I have addressed that before. His first touch isn't necessarily clean enough so far. He's only 20 years old. Can he grow into that position, and where do you see him long term? I'm going to combine this with a question from Admore. It's a similar vibe. He says, hi Nobbins, if we do buy a new right back, do we even need another central midfielder, considering we have Rico and Nico who can play at central midfield? So 2 questions there. Do City need a central midfielder, and who do we have right now who can play there? So I definitely do, just to address the first one, first of all, I do believe we will need another midfield option next year. I think it's just a case of a numbers game. If we are viewing Gundogan leaving and Reinders coming in, so Reinders we can view as the Gundogan replacement, let's say. If Kovacic leaves next summer, which we can probably assume will happen, then we can say that Nico Gonzalez is like the Kovacic replacement, if not in profile, in just number and body. And then if Bernardo leaves next season, then all of a sudden we are -1 a body. So unless we are looking to internally promote another player, just by virtue of volume of numbers and bodies, I think we will need to bring in another one of those players. I like the idea of Rico Lewis, and I love the idea of trusting Nico O'Reilly there as well. Just going to what Jay Worth said before, whenever he's played in midfield, generally, he's not looked anywhere near as comfortable as when he's been playing at left back. And that makes sense. Left backs are far more simplified position. It's not like in the midfield where it's like a 360 situation that's going on. The left side is totally shut down because of the touchline. So there's far less for you to think about on ball as well. There's far less for you to worry about because you know that you're not going to be getting attacked from that left side because the touchline is out on that left side. O'Reilly hasn't played that much in midfield, but whenever he has, those haven't been his best performances. The best performances have been from left back. Now, of course, he's only 20 years old. So that can improve. He can develop. He can get a cleaner first touch. He can be more comfortable on the ball. That could absolutely be a thing. But given how fantastic his left back performances have been, I don't even know if we necessarily need to see that. And given how we, by virtue of numbers, need another body there, I would like it to be O'Reilly, but longer term, I'm not sure that's going to be a thing. Rico Lewis, I think, can be a valuable squad option. I'm not convinced he's ever going to be a locked-in starter. I'm now warming to the idea of Nico O'Reilly genuinely competing for a starting left-back position and maybe a squad option in midfield. But certainly right now, if we look at the other midfield profiles at City, the players like Rodri, Nico Gonzalez, Foden, Shirky, Reinders, these guys are in a different category of comfortability in the centre compared to O'Reilly. So he can absolutely grow into it. It's really hard to predict ceilings, but he's looking so much more comfortable at left back, defensively assured, offensively competent also. Let's just keep him there for now. I know this question wasn't asked, but people did ask in the comment section of the last one, well, who would you like in that midfield? Who would you want to come in? And I think that we do have to, this isn't a sexy thing to talk about, but you guys know I'm obsessed with the homegrown situation at City. And it may well be that City have to look to that homegrown market. And immediately that's going to be a player such as Wharton, or maybe even Gibbs-White as well. I would be more happy and interested with a Wharton, but I could also see the value in Gibbs-White. But there may well have to be an acceptance from City, given how many non-homegrown players are in the squad now and the additional bodies that will be in the squad next season that are non-homegrown. We might have to punt for a homegrown option there. This one is from Two Cats Comic Bookstore. And this isn't a City related question. And feel free to ask non-City related questions in the comments section, or like not even football questions. Ask whatever you want. So ask Nobbins, what are the chances Arne Slot is a fraud? And I don't mean a cheeky subscribe and like unless you're a fraud. Make sure you're doing that, by the way. Don't be a fraud. I mean way out of his depth and may not know it or how to fix it. If true, what would it look like? How would we be able to tell? And when would it reveal itself? So the first thing, I don't think he's actually a fraud. Like he's won the Premier League. So first of all, like in real terms, like he's not actually a fraud. But there is definitely a question to be had of, was that league title win last season reflective of what Slot is fundamentally as a manager? Or were there other circumstances at play from his own players and also the relative weakness of how of like the top of the table last season? Of course, like we know that both City and Arsenal did have a lot of injuries last season, not trying to downplay it, of course, but then you add to that the ridiculous form that Salah had last year, the ridiculous form of players like Van Dijk also. When will it reveal itself? Well, it will reveal itself because he now knows the problems and he has to fix said problems. He's trying to play seemingly far too similar to what he was doing last season. I think Slot's even touched on this before, how he said, we haven't really changed much from last season in respect of the tactics, but maybe the difference was that certain players were converting chances that they're maybe not doing this season. Now, that is maybe being too overly reliant on those sorts of moments, and it got them out of the woods at the start of the season, the amount of times where they got those late goals, and it happened over and over and over again. And I was convincing myself that at what point is this not luck, and at what point is this just the reality? But we know that everything tends to balance out to the mean, and we may be seeing that right now. There was a fantastic stat by Mark Stats, if I remember, I'll put it up on the screen. It basically illustrated what Liverpool have lost from their fullbacks. So Trent and Robertson, fantastic progressors of the ball. Like Trent in particular, an unbelievable passer, arguably only like Kevin De Bruyne last season, maybe a better passer of the ball. That is how good he is. And that element isn't necessarily being spoken about too much. I think that the other element is lots of lovely players being added, players like Wirtz, Ekitike, Isak. The problem for Liverpool this season, and indeed the weakness for Liverpool this season, was never going to be, can you score enough goals and generate enough chances? The problem was always going to be, Okay, that's fine, but what about when you get hit on the counter-attack, and then how are your fullbacks going to cope and how your centre-backs going to protect them? When Van Dijk's been in great form, he's been able to provide that protection. Same with Konate as well. Konate's had an odd season so far with Liverpool. Frimpong's barely even played at right back, so that's all been up in the air. Kerkez is, this might sound harsh, I think he's average as a left back. I don't think that he's good enough really for Liverpool. I was a bit surprised when Liverpool signed him. I think he's a fine player and he is young, he can develop, but I think that's it. I think he's fine. So in hindsight, because I was someone who bigs Liverpool up, I thought they were favourites for the title, but in hindsight, maybe it was all too much change all at the same time, too much change too quickly in respect to the personnel, and Slot hasn't yet adapted his strategy / tactics to his new players. That's probably what the issue is there. So that will be the question. How quickly can Slot figure that out? And what can he do to amend it? Because Liverpool have quite a lot of issues this season. And it's not only in transition, which I knew they were going to be weak from, but they're also struggling with build-up. And I did not really think about that. Right now, their only true build-up defending option is Van Dijk. Like, Kerkez is horror at it. Konate's not really that useful at it either. Frimpong's barely played, so you're often not playing a proper right back there, or it's Bradley who's nowhere near a Trent level in respect of build-up. They've got a lot to sort out, Liverpool, and the more I think about it, the more I'm convincing myself that they're not going to strike that balance this season, and by the time that he realises it Slot, if indeed he can, the title may already be gone, whether that's Arsenal or City. So I don't think he's a fraud. I'm not going to say he's out of his depth, but now is the time to prove himself as this elite manager, because he clearly can be. He won the title last season, but how much of that was individual excellence rather than getting the best out of the overall team as a whole? Last question. This is from MNJ Gaming Pop 9606. If you've enjoyed the video, leave a like on the video. If you are new, hey, how are you? Subscribe to the channel. If you want to go the extra mile, then do consider joining the channel. That is the best way to support your boy. Final question. Do we need a left-footed centre-back for our squad depth if Ake leaves? Because in that case, Guardiola will be the only left-footed centre-back at our football club. The biggest problem and the biggest concern that I raised when we signed all three of, I didn't include Bar in that earlier question. I feel really mean now. I forgot about Bar. When we signed Bar, Hayes, Kusanov, three massive prospects, three really highly regarded young centre-backs, relatively inexperienced, all of them. But the main cause of concern I had was that they're all right-footed, which isn't ideal. We know that Pep Guardiola adores a left-footed, left-sided centre-back, and with good reason. If you have a left-footer, whether that's Laporte or to a lesser extent Ake, but certainly Laporte and especially Guardiola, you are just so much more of a threat in build-up. Far more angles are now open to your centre-backs, and it makes it a far more difficult task for the opponent to press you if you have a lefty at left centre-back. And this is a very valid point of concern to raise, because right now it's Guardiola and Ake, and those are our two options. Ake's either going to, you would assume, either leave this summer or next summer. And if the idea is to, let's say, replace Akanji, Stones, Ake with a combination with 2 out of 3 or all 3 of Hayes, Bar and Kusanov, then yeah, you are losing a valuable tool, and far more dependency is placed on Guardiola. And you add to that the fact that we've weakened ourselves from a build-up POV, given the fact that we've gone from Ederson to Donnarumma. It becomes so much more important that Guardiola can play. It becomes so much important that a left footer can play. When we saw, like, at the start of the season and Diaz was playing at left centre-back, and the amount of times that City were struggling because Diaz wasn't comfortable passing with his left, so he had to take an extra touch to pass it onto his right. That allows the opponent to press onto him a lot easier. So we've already seen it this season, and we will see it a lot more if Guardiola gets out of the side. So it is a concern, and I guess it depends on how much we value, the on-ball ability of players like Bar and Hayes and Kusanov, and how quickly they can develop. It's not inherently a bad thing for a righty to play at left centre-back, especially if that right-footed player has a decent left foot. Ideally, we would go for a left foot. I've seen some people suggest Slotterbeck as well at Dortmund. There's so much up in the air with just our centre-back situation next summer. I don't know what we're going to do. Is Stones going to are we going to extend him, or is he just out the door? Ake, are we going to wait for his contract to run out in 2027, or are we going to extend him, or are we just going to move him on? Are we going to trust Hayes, Bar, Kusanov to immediately come in? Well, Kusanov less so, he's already here. But let's say Hayes and Bar, are we going to have them stay? Are we going to send them out on loan again? Well, if we do that, so we might need to bring in another centre-back perhaps, depending on if Stones and Ake go. It's a really tricky one to answer. In an ideal world, we would sign a left-footed centre-back, but I don't know if the room is going to be there if we back both of Hayes and Bar. So really good question. And in an ideal world, yes, we would bring in a left-footer if Ake leaves, because as you say, the only one at the club would be Joško Guardiola, and that is a concern given that our build-up is already questionable as things stand. Those were all the questions. Thank you so much for watching. Really hope you enjoyed it. Remember, leave your question in the comment section. If you don't have a question for me, then leave a comment for the algorithm and rate my fade haircut out of 10. And I want like a 20-word essay on why it's the rating that you're giving it, yeah? That's if you don't have a question. If you do, leave it in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like on the video, and I'll catch you next time.